What is the meaning of life? Hi, it's Otaosese, and welcome to my web series. Today's episode is about how to find fulfillment and a sense of meaning. I think this is a very significant topic to discuss because we can all draw something tangible from it, especially as we are in the last quarter of the year, and generally around this time, most people start to check their goals, habits, achievements, and what they would like to accomplish before the end of the year. They also pay attention to how they're feeling and if they're happy with the results they are producing. But beyond the time of year, I think this topic should be discussed all year round. And I'm hoping you'll find this episode useful, not only for yourself, but for your friends and loved ones as well. Now, I recently read about Soichiro Honda. Honda was a Japanese entrepreneur and inventor, engaged in the development and industrial production of mopeds, motorcycles, and cars. He served as an example of a man with perseverance, modesty, pleasant manners, and the ability to accept mistakes as a valuable asset to his employees and family. He rose above repeated failures and boldly overcame obstacles. He found meaning and purpose in his trials, and interestingly, he presented to his staff standard job descriptions with the 3 joys they had to learn: the joy of producing, the joy of selling a Honda product to a buyer, and the joy of knowing that the buyer is happy that they bought a Honda product. If you don't know much about this founder of Honda, you need to read about him. According to Honda, real happiness is in the completion of work using your own brain and skills. Like all great lessons, the one taught by Honda through his life and work takes time to sink in. Now, something I understood about Honda, which I want to share with you, is Honda was such a happy man, seeing joy in the most mundane things like manufacturing, sales, and customer service. In other words, he accepted the world as it was and believed in the innate goodness of humankind. So if you ever worry that the difficulties or setbacks you're facing are permanent and entirely your fault, hear me when I tell you that your problems are within your control and they will go away. So don't get so caught up in being upset that you lose sight of the actual situation you are in. When it comes to pursuing a meaningful existence instead of happiness, it's very hard to do so in a society that demands happiness from us. And this isn't just an observation. As Nigerians living in Nigeria, for example, we tend to believe that though things may be bad, it go better. And so we chase things that make us happy to avoid the existing reality of poverty, corruption, and violence. Seeking happiness in itself is not a bad thing. After all, happiness is not all about the external world around you, but completely about your mindset, right? However, in our pursuit of happiness, we tend to run to simple joys like sex, food, drugs, and alcohol, or perhaps more socially valuable activities like success, money, work, and power. Sadly, this need to chase happiness is caused by a crisis of meaning, and it manifests itself in depression, addiction, frustration, and hostility. And so we keep ourselves busy in extreme anxiety to keep the vacuum caused by the crisis of meaning from rearing its ugly head in our lives. But it's not possible to pursue happiness. Happiness occurs as a result of something. It's just like laughter. If you want someone to laugh, you have to give them a reason. For example, telling them a joke. The subtle difference between pursuing meaning versus happiness could seem trivial, but this is not a mind trick where you fool your mind into wanting one thing while actually wanting the other. Pursuing meaning is not about you. It's about putting someone or something else first. Have you noticed that we're happiest when we're playing, watching TV, or laughing with our friends and loved ones? Or when we're absorbed in a song, show, or book we love? Or when we are arguing about things we believe in? Or when we are dancing like there's nobody watching? Or when we are doing whatever it is that makes us forget who we are and just focus on someone or something else. It denotes the fact that being human often points to and is aimed at something or anyone other than oneself, whether it is a meaning to be fulfilled or another human being to be reached. So the crux of the matter is, how does one find meaning? When it comes to creating meaning in our lives, here are 3 ways to do so. Way number 1 is to produce some tangible physical or intellectual work that expresses your unique abilities and skills. This will give you a sense of fulfillment and meaning in life. Until the expression of your unique abilities and skills are embodied in actual tangible form, whether physical or intellectual, it doesn't feel real. Our spiritual being, which is associated with our mind, heart, soul, and spirit, is opened up and developed through outward expression. And our spiritual aspect is the distinguishing attributes we have as human beings. This is actually what makes us human. And so if our thoughts and feelings have no means of expression, they lack a certain sense of meaning. Way number 2 is by having a relationship with something or someone. Engaging with the generosity, truth, and beauty we see all around us makes them come into and become a part of us. Likewise, when we engage with another human being, we enter into a relationship with them. Love is the strongest and most important force in human life. Essentially, love is what causes the connection in any relationship. When we are involved in loving relationships, our life has meaning. Our life is love. And there's an abridged version of an old quotation by Isaac Pennington that I want to share, which expresses this. He wrote, "Our life is love and peace and tenderness and bearing with one another, but praying one for another and helping one another up with a tender hand." Love lifts our consciousness and intensifies our awareness. I believe we were created from God's very substance, and God is love. In other words, love is our source because we come from love. And way number 3 is to find meaning in the midst of suffering. It is precisely when we are in the midst of pain and hardship that we are most human. And while at that moment it can seem quite the opposite to us, it is also when God is nearest to us. Perhaps your life right now is full of pain, hardship, and suffering. And you may even be asking yourself if your life is worth living. Pain and suffering are unfortunate parts of life. And for certain people, suffering is the norm rather than the exception. Pain and suffering in themselves are definitely not pleasant. And there's one great perspective from Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning, which is, in no way is suffering necessary to find meaning. Meaning is possible even in spite of suffering, providing certainly that the suffering is unavoidable. In other words, meaning is found when purpose is pursued. So rather than succumbing to hopelessness and despair, as so many people do, devote your efforts to helping yourself and those around you to find some meaning in life and some reason to keep moving forward and living for higher purposes despite terrible challenges. So if at the time you're watching this, you're feeling empty or you're feeling downcast, I want you to remember that you have the power to give meaning to your life. I want you to listen to what your heart instructs you to do and do it to the best of your knowledge. Now, I value your feedback, so I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to practice a more meaningful life, try to review these 3 ways. And would you please let me know in the comments below your biggest takeaway from each one and the profound meaning that you might have found in it. As usual, to get more insights and ideas from me, head over to Otaosese.com and let's discuss there. I wish you and your loved ones an outstanding 4th quarter, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, be mindful and stay grateful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.